Hi, my name is Jamie Utt, and I'm a diversity and inclusion consultant who's been working with schools for more than 10 years to try to end the problem of bullying in our school communities. Today, I'm here to talk with you about a particular way to think about bullying in hopes that we can start to act a little bit more as whole communities, bringing together teachers, students, and parents to prevent bullying before it actually happens in our school communities.
My name is Leanne Lesho, and I have one son. And for a living, I own a yoga studio. I am a yoga teacher, but I would call myself more of a spiritual teacher than anything.
Awesome.
And that's the gist of it.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, since you've kind of seen the other conversations, we're just talking about identity-based bullying being a particular a way of looking at bullying as an issue. And so I'm curious if you have any questions or advice that you'd like to give other parents.
Well, being in the business that I'm in, it really is a practice of yoga. Speaking of yoga, is really a practice of learning who we really are, which is everything that is not physical, which is everything that is not physically based, or the things that you see in this physical world, your clothes, your physical body, the name that was given to you, your race, your gender, just all of the things that are really more of an illusion than anything, and who we really are as people is beautiful, loving, whole, complete beings that really need no fixing. And we have a lot more in common than we do not in common, but it's very easy for us to not see that, because these are all things that you can't see. These are things that you feel. So I would say focusing there, that helps us to relate more than it does to being fearful of what we are afraid people are judging us based on, and that causes us to act out towards others in that way.
Well, that's great advice for parents. Helping them to reconsider the ways that we're focusing in our conversations with our young people. So that's great. Excellent. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, my main question is, if my son encounters a situation where he's being discriminated against, or he's being someone is trying to tear him down based on something that is trying to tell him that this is who you are, and it's something that does cause him pain, or to feel separate from others. If I become aware, because I'm pretty aware of those things, I feel that I wouldn't have a problem being aware that something's going on, and that I would obviously want to step in and do something. But I think my greatest fear would be, of course I'm going to want to go to the teacher. Of course I'm going to want to go to the source, and I'm going to want to have some sort of a positive impact on fixing this. But with that, I know that it's not going to change overnight. The things that when you're dealing with these kinds of things, these are ingrained things that we condition ourselves, and I believe that if a child is displaying behaviors that are to tear other people down, it's really a learned thing. It's coming from the environment around them, and I believe that if it's being learned and they don't understand that it's being picked up from somewhere else, then how do we work with changing that? Because my child still has to go to school, and I can believe that someone's going to try to address it, but to believe that it's being addressed in a way that's going to continue to work with it, and not just think like, oh, it's fixed because we addressed it and we talked about it, and does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
It does. Okay. And I think that one of the most important things that I tell parents that they can do is, from the earliest point in the school year in their education, starting to build relationships with the people at school, and that can be hard when you're really busy, to take the time to go in and meet the teacher before there's a problem, because it's easy to make the time after there's a problem, but it's a lot harder when there's not a problem yet, or going in and talking to the principal, or those kinds of things. Those are key, because I used to be a teacher, and when I was a teacher, it was a lot harder for me to work with a parent that was coming in indignant if I had never talked to them before, because A, I don't know sort of what their understanding of their kid is. I don't know where they're coming from in terms of what all they're upset about, you know, versus if the parents that I had a relationship with who came in from the beginning of the school year and introduced themselves, or who even just called me, even if they couldn't come in, they called me or they emailed me. Those parents, I feel like it was much easier when there was a problem to start to address the problem holistically, because we could go have a back and forth, we could ask questions. And often I got to know the student a lot better before there was any problem, because they would email me and they would call me and say, hey, you know, my son or daughter is going through X, Y, and Z, and just wanted to give you a heads up, so that then I could be proactive in approaching that student. So anything that you can do to create those proactive relationships is going to be key to making sure that it's a holistic response, right? That it's not just a one and done response, that it's something that's about changing the culture and climate of the classroom to make sure everyone is safe and comfortable, and that it's about making sure that you're addressing it in an ongoing way, and that you're building up the student in an ongoing way. And then the other thing is, unfortunately, and I think that this is often out of necessity, because again, parents are really busy. Like, we have our jobs, plus we have to get dinner taken care of or whatever it may be. And but rarely do I see school communities that function as a community, in the sense that we know all the other parents, and that's hard to do. And so I don't expect that parents have the time to do all of that. But even if there's one or two other parents that you can start to have a relationship with, particularly if those parents have similar philosophies and mindsets, as well as if those parents' kids share things in common, particularly things about their identity or their experience in common with your child. Because then you can start to, by talking to those other parents, you can see, okay, was the thing that happened with my child a part of a pattern, or was it an isolated incident? Versus all you have is your one experience of your child to go with, unless you have those relationships with other parents. And so from an early age, trying to build up those relationships as much as you feel like you are able.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So then you don't have to spend the time in the initial meeting just getting to know each other.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So kind of get right to it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Yeah. Any other questions that you have?
I guess with the program that you're working with, is there discussion coming from the teachers? Is there like open dialogue in the community, like focusing on the community actually discussing these things together?
That's the goal of the program. Is we say that it's meant to be a program that engages every level of the community, which is why we're doing the parent videos. Is that often parents are left out of the conversation altogether, and so we're doing work with parents. We're also doing work with students. We're doing work with teachers to make sure that teachers are understanding the holistic nature of the problem of bullying in our schools. And so I think that the goal is to create, like I said, I think that so often educational communities aren't really communities, in the sense that we're not working together and taking care of each other and so on. And the goal of the program is to try to see, we're trying to focus on prevention. So much of the conversations around that, if we can create what we call a culture of civility, or an inclusive environment prior to any of the problems getting started, then that's what we actually want, right? Yeah. And sometimes problems they've been happening for a very long time, and so starting to then transform the community so that we're dealing with the problems that are already happening, but then we're changing the culture and climate to be one of civility or of inclusion, where everyone feels like they have a space. And that can only be done when every level of the school community is engaged in understanding that as the nature of the work.
Yeah.
So
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's the
civility.
Hope. Yeah. And that actually comes from an educational researcher at the University of Arizona. Her name is Sherry Bauman. And what she says is that so often schools respond to bullying. They respond to bullying, but they don't actually do much proactively. And she says that responses to bullying research shows are tremendously ineffective because so often they're punitive, and punitive measures aren't effective in dealing with bullying. She says instead we need to create a culture of civility. We took that language from her research.
Yeah, that's in language is very powerful.
Yeah.
That's a very powerful word.
Yeah.
A good one.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could see also to where, because when it is punitive, it's really potentially creating more of the problem, because that's what would, for a parent to step in or a teacher to step in, it would be based on punishment, which is unfavorable for the bully.
Yeah, exactly.
So it would just create more of the problem. So I like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the tough thing that we want to always tell parents is sometimes punitive measures need to be part of the solution, right? Like when a kid is acting out, for instance, maybe they're about to touch the oven, we have to be like, no, don't, and that's scary to that kid. It feels punitive, but that's a protective measure, right?
Yeah.
But so often that's the only thing we do in our school communities. We don't have anything other than the punitive response. And as a result, we're not actually doing anything to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Any other questions?
No.